All right.
You're good? All right, so let's start. Could you please introduce us, Mr. Gokhan Celiker?
All right. So I think the easiest place to start is the latest thing I've been working on. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Fango Influencer Marketing Platform. It's an influencer marketing marketplace where we bring creators and brands together. And then the shiny number we have over there is we reached over 1.2 billion social media reach. So that's the thing I've been working on for the last 4 years. But I can quickly give you an idea how I came here as well. So I'll quickly start from the age 12 because I think it resonates with you too. I'm a self-taught developer since age 12. And then I started building websites in high school. And then I even got paid to build websites in high school. And then I studied engineering college. With the first year of college, I started building projects. I created a blog. It still has around 3 million page views per year. And then I created the Turkish version of Dig, digg.com. I think Dig is no longer that popular, but you might know Reddit better, where the Reddit is the social news website, just in case you don't know it. So what happens is, like, people with blogs and other news websites, they come and post it to your website, and then the highest voted one gets the homepage. So I worked at Intel, the Intel corporation that does the CPUs, to learn more about how Silicon Valley works in Turkey. And then I sold my Turkish startup, the Oyla, the social news one, and then moved to Silicon Valley, and then took design thinking course at Stanford. And then I created the photo app called WeSnap. We sold the photo app WeSnap, and then created the platform, like I mentioned, the Fango. So that's a quick overview of what I've done since age 12, and I'll be happy to dive into any details if you guys are interested.
Sounds like once you try to summarize 18 years of experience in a couple minutes, it's very dense. But yeah, thank you very much, and great job. Yeah, cool. So at this point of your life, what problems do you feel excited to solve?
Yeah, so currently I think the most exciting thing is the advancement with AI, and then the problems is the problems are little bit. It's kind of sad. I lost my father at the age of 15 to lung cancer. So right now I am very interested in what's happening with the developments of AI and how we can apply this to touch human life in a sense that where we can help them and avoid such disasters. That's the problem I'm most interested in right now.
And we wish you good luck in solving that problem, because it's not just going to be helpful
you.
for you, but all of us and all humanity. I think it's a great problem. Yeah. Thank you.
I agree with you. Thank you.
And so, this comes up a lot. What do you think? Because you spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley, and in your experience, what is different in Silicon Valley than all the other places? What is special about this place?
Well, so many. So I'll think about I'll try to nugget them. When I mean nugget, I'll try to summarize them in a bit. So first, I want to start with an American saying that I learned here: the grass is always greener in your neighborhood's garden. So I learned it here, which that means if you look at other places, you usually hear the best of it. But if you live in such a place, you see the whole picture. So when you look at the grass analogy, when you look at the grass from the top view, you can see the soil as well. But if you look at the grass from the side view, you only see the green part of it. So even though the grass is the same in your neighbor, you would see the grass way greener when you're looking at the neighbor. So I think Silicon Valley has that feature as well. What I mean with that is It looks amazing from outside, but it's also a place like anywhere else in the world. But so this is the foundation I want to start with because it is not like a magical place that is told everywhere, but it is also very different in such a sense that maybe you guys see my mug over here. You can think big here, and then you can share the ideas with other people, and then you can bring other people who think big as well, and you can change the world. I think I'd like to define Silicon Valley as if we were living in Renaissance times, Paris would be the Silicon Valley of today. So I think the biggest difference is it brings the ambitious and then the most people that work on their like personal growth. And then when you put so many people together at the same place, it creates this amazing notion where everybody wants to achieve more, everybody wants to help more. And I think one other thing I'd like to compare is really important. When I first came to Silicon Valley, somebody I met here through an introduction helped me a lot, and then I asked him, "Hey, how can I help you back?" Because that's the let's say I'm from Turkey, that's the Turkish way of doing things. So if you get help from someone, you help them back. And then he told me the Silicon Valley way of doing things, which is to pay it forward instead of paying it back. So he told me instead of, hey, you helping me back, why don't you help someone else who might need your help so that it is better for everyone, it is better for the society as well. So I think this might be the number one thing, and that's why I'm here as well. I'd love to help you guys too.
Thank you very much. And like as you mentioned, basically the Silicon Valley way of doing things, instead of keeping it only between two people, but basically starting a chain, can indeed have a lot more impact than keeping it only between two people. All right, so
Yeah.
now let's change the gears a little bit. And we have
Okay.
some vivid readers in our audience as well. Would you recommend us any books? And why do you
Sure.
recommend
I'd
them?
love to.
Yeah.
I'd love to. I think if you want to learn more about Silicon Valley and like I'm approaching the book recommendation from that perspective. If your goal is to learn more about Silicon Valley, I have two types of book recommendations. One is it's the books about the founders here, like their biographies, and then the second type of book is the books about companies. So I'll give you, for example, two examples. From a biography perspective, I think Steve Jobs' biography is really good. And then from a company perspective, I think Hatching Twitter, the story of Twitter is really good. You can also look at the Google's book, How Google Works, if you want to learn more about like the inner workings of the company. So Steve Jobs' biography, Elon Musk's biography, and then Twitter's biography, like the Hatching Twitter, and How Google Works. Those would be the four books I would recommend to learn more about Silicon Valley.
Thank you very much. And like so far in your career, which role did you like the most? Because like you have been involved in different businesses, you also worked for a big corporation. Like you are in a position to compare many different possible routes that our audience can take. So can you give us more insight on that? And like why is the favorite one is your favorite?
This is a really hard question because liking it is very like yeah, I liked almost all of my roles, so I'll try to approach it from a let's say comparison perspective. When I was working at Intel, I loved it a lot from the perspective where I was learning so much from my colleagues, but I was learning so much from manager, and then I was learning so much from the company's internal like teachings, including like the courses, and then people you can reach out to about if you need to learn about something or the resources. So I really like the role from learning perspective over there. And then when I founded the company and I started creating teams, I loved the creating team perspective from where you try to hire the best of the people, and then your goal is to help them grow and then help them achieve more, and then whenever you can help with them, you do, and then that's when you see the fact that your little helps actually help them a lot and then grow them, and then that makes them happy and achieve more. So I think the role where I like to like being the CEO and the founder, I like that from that perspective. And when you're the CEO, you have to, or the founder, you have to almost learn everything on your own, as opposed to working in a company, which is more challenging if you want to grow faster. Work at a company where you can learn a lot from your manager, and if you feel like you can teach a lot of people and you enjoy it, then go found a company where you can bring people together and and share your learnings.
Thank
So
you very
I
much.
like that
Uh-huh.
both actually. I think it depends on the stage where you're at.
Very cool. And I actually have a follow-up question for this one because, like, we also have many like entrepreneurial souls here, and like one thing I think it would be helpful is to clarify the difference between being a CEO for a company versus being a CTO for a company. Because, like, I guess if some of our audience continue with their entrepreneurial projects in the future, I think like these two roles are gonna be the most popular ones. And maybe if you can give us some insights as a person like who spent a lot of time being in these roles as well as working with these roles, I think it will be helpful for them to choose which one is actually better fit for them.
I hear you. So, just to give like some ideas, I've never been the CTO, but I try to work at the technical side as well. So I'll just like I cannot fully compare becoming a CTO versus the CEO, but I have a technical background and I've like wrote code daily, even when I was the, let's say, the solo founder as well. So I think like I had to wear the CTO hat on my own. I think the biggest difference is this: if you enjoy uh, raising funds, if you enjoy a little bit sales, if you enjoy team building, then being the CEO is the best way. So I think CEOs are more like a, let's say, people person where you have to deal with lots of people during the day, versus when you're the CTO, you're more of a code person and you're a technical person where you deal with computers every day. So both of them has its advantages and disadvantages. So it depends on whichever you like the most. If you like the technical side more, become the CTO. If you like the people side more, be the CEO would be my like short answer, but I'm trying to, let's say again, summarize years of experience into like short nuggets.
Yes. Also, like in many companies, CTOs are also kind of responsible for team building. Like imagine having many employees in the technical side. Obviously, CTO is going to be the head of the engineering team, and it also requires a lot of like people skills, communication skills, as well as team building side. But thank you very much
Sure
for your
thing.
insights.
Sure
Yes.
thing. Definitely. We should mention that as well. I was just giving you the early stages of the startup.
Hmm. And so our next question is, so what soft skills do you think are important when it comes to building a successful career in Silicon Valley? And like it would be better if you need to, like if you can branch because there are different career paths that are available in Silicon Valley. Like if you're going to start your own company,
Sure.
this would be one path, or if you are going to go through the corporate path as an engineer, that can be another one. So yes.
Sure. So before branching out, maybe I'd like to talk more about like what would be the best soft skills. So I think one of the most important one is the communication skill. So whatever you think, like however smart you are, if you are not able to communicate it clearly, then the person in front of you won't be able to understand it. So communication is one of the most key skills to have as a soft skill, let's say on top of your technical skill. And then the I think the trust is really important as well. The trust, I'm mentioning trust in a perspective where if you say you can do something, then you have to work on doing it. And if you let's say it turns out you cannot do it, you have to tell your people that like you tried your best but you couldn't do it. So I think the trust from a perspective where you can, if you give them a timeline or if you give them like a task that you're gonna do it, then I think you should deliver or try your best to deliver, and then communicate if you are having any problems. So the communication part comes in that perspective where I think asking for help is really important as well. Like I mentioned, everybody is trying to be helpful here. Everybody knows the fact that you cannot know everything and you cannot be, let's say, knowledgeable about 100% in everything. So I think asking for help in that sense is really important as well. So if you're communicating clearly and if you're building trust and if you're asking for help, I think this applies to so many different roles. And then if you have questions for like any other like branch in particular, I can dive deeper into that.
So maybe one branch that our students might be curious about is like how to become a strong engineer. Because at the beginning, like
Mm-hmm.
you might want to get some engineering experience, even if you want to start your own company in the long run. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So on top of the like let's say learning most of the like the learning the technical side of things where once you need to use something you already know all the options you have, then you're able to use it. Then becomes the practice part where I think the more you try to build things, it is better. And then from that perspective, I think looking into open source projects and how it works, I think that's really important. I like to say I'm not sure if you can consider this as like a not a technical skill, but collaborating on collaborating on software development tools. I think that's a skill to learn. Uh, the easiest example is how the Git flow works. So you can understand Git, you can understand the technical side of it, but I believe the flow of it and how people utilize it to deliver work daily, I think understanding is really important because you're going to be dealing with lots of, let's say, conflicts and how to do things. I would say the learning how the work works from a flow perspective, process perspective, is really important if you're a software engineer.
That's a very good point. And like as you mentioned, um, like being able to use these collaborative tools to do things with other people, other engineers, is a very important skill. And for many of students, or at least like that was the case for me when I was an undergrad student, I had no idea how important these were because yes,
Yeah.
like we were doing some group projects, but the group sizes never achieved more than five, and even those were very limited. But when it comes to doing something in a big company, like you are collaborating around like maybe 10 to 20 people in your team is collaborating with some other teams. So the tools you are using, the projects you are working on, it involves contributions from many people, like tens of
Yeah.
people, if not hundreds of. So it's important to get to know these and practice them early on so that once you start your career, like you can have a jump start. Yes,
I think it is really important. The collaboration skill is super important.
thank you. And so this is actually our most popular question. And
All right.
which habits helped you to become a better version of yourself and why?
So I like to say the number one habit that made me become a better version of myself is actually to start thinking about how I can be a better version of myself. So the the search for becoming a better person is, I think, it's the starting point. So I think it is really important. The second method or habit I used is trying to figure out what you're good at the same time what you're not amazing at. So, like I mentioned, in our modern society, we understand that not everybody can be 100% amazing or superstar at everything, but you can collaborate with people. So if you understand what you're already good at and what you're kind of missing, then you can improve yourself at the areas where you're already good at. So you can excel at those areas. And for the areas you're not really good at, it is it is super hard to excel in those areas. So what you should do is you should be at least like be okay, be a little bit better in those areas, but focusing on where you can excel would be one of the habits that I used. The other one is pushing your limits. So the easiest way to remember it is like five more. So what you do is, let's say you're tired and then you're like, done, I cannot do this anymore. Then you tell yourself five more. So let's say if you're doing something, let's say if you're writing code, you can say five more lines or 5 more minutes to work on it. Or if you are, let's say, trying to uh, push yourself physically, you say, I don't know, run 5 more minutes or do push ups 5 more minutes. I think it's easier to explain with the physical things, but I think the pushing your limits whenever you're feeling you're done, you're stuck, then you try to push yourself more. That increases your limit over time, and then that grows you over time the more you push yourself. I think pushing your limits is really important. And the going back to the first one, I think having some sort of a coach or some sort of a mentor where they can tell you where you're good at, where you can improve, and asking for feedback from them. And then once you're getting the feedback, instead of being defensive, you try to internalize it and you think about it, then your work on it would be to like a way to improve yourself.
I think these are all very important points. Thank you very much. And
Okay.
I would like to add on five more. So, like basically, they say our limits are way further than where they are, where we think they are. And I think like with this five more approach, we can actually get a little bit closer to where they actually are.
Mhm.
Yes.
I totally agree with you.
And the next question is, so far in your experience, like
Mhm.
what are the common mistakes that interviewers do in interviews? And like what would you suggest to avoid them?
Sure, sure. There are multiple things. I'll start from the first step, where the first step is you're in the interview and you're asked a question. I think the first step is asking clarifying questions and trying to understand the question you're getting asked better would be the like the number one thing I would recommend. So instead of, let's say, making assumptions on your own and trying to come up with the answers to your assumptions, you can just ask clarifying questions. Say, are you asking this? And then the interviewer will guide you if you got it right or wrong. And it is perfectly fine to like ask clarifying questions. You can, if you never ask clarifying questions or if you don't focus on that, you can feel like, oh, I'm asking clarifying questions. Does that mean that I didn't get the question? Does that mean that I am bad? Not really. The world is all about like asking clarifying questions and not working on the wrong thing. So if you don't ask clarifying questions and work on the wrong thing, then you're worse off. So number one thing, ask clarifying questions to understand you get the question right. So second thing, assumptions. So if you're making assumptions, just tell that you're making those assumptions, and you can always check, hey, I did those assumptions. Do you think they're fine assumptions? And the interview will guide you as well. And then the third thing I want to mention is, let's say you asked the clarifying questions and made assumptions, and then you started working on the problem. Instead of like diving deep and then like trying to complete it all the way to the end, you just like start and say, hey, am I on the correct path? Or hey, am I doing the right thing? Or is there anything I should focus on? So I think when you're doing the question, stop and then take a breather, and then ask if you're on the correct path. I think that helps with the questions as well. I think that helps a lot with the interview process. And then lastly, I would say always ask for feedback afterwards. Not during the interview, maybe like after, reach out to the person after the interview. So I think trying to get those feedback. You don't always get feedback, but let's say you did 10 interviews and you get feedback, you can learn about it and try to improve it the next time.
Cool. So the next question we have, like, how did you prepare for interviews yourself?
Oh, so um, the the way I prepared was I researched a lot about the company first. So you should be able to answer why this company instead of another company. That's really important. And then I think I have some sort of unique case where I'm getting the question that's like I did a startup before I joined Intel as well. So the question I was getting was why you're joining Intel all of a sudden that you're a founder. So getting a good answer to that was really good. I'll give you guys the answer I had back years doing the startup in the freshman year, and then I tried to join the Intel around the third, fourth year. So the answer I had was I was really, really young to join a company. I felt that way. And then I felt like I wasn't credible enough while sitting in the college in the early years. So I tried to like build things on my own. And then I felt like, all right. And while all of my friends were just, I don't know, partying and like doing their own thing, I worked on things. And then towards the end of the years, everybody was doing internship, which is a normal thing to, let's say, try to join a company. That was the time like I tried to join Intel, so that was my answer to them. Just to give you guys the detail over there, and then what I from a technical perspective, you want to prepare to you want to practice a lot. So whatever interview you're going for, you want to, let's say, if it's a coding interview, you want to code a lot. And then the challenge there is you normally code on your computer where you're working with an IDE, it autocompletes, it shows you if you're making a mistake. Let's say if you have to code at a board, which I don't recommend, like for the interviews, I think it's not the best interview process, but some companies still do. And so practicing that coding on the board with a friend is really important. And then if you can find someone that can play the role of the interviewer and give you a hard time, ask follow-up questions, I think practicing that interview process is really important in going through interviews as well.
I completely agree, and part of our program is also like at the end, close to the real interviews with Silicon Valley companies. We will connect our students with engineers who are working for these companies and conducted already like maybe tens or if not hundreds of interviews, and they will actually get the real interview experience from people who were in the role of interviewer for a very long time. Cool.
Nice.
So
just keep in mind that when they give you a hard time on the interview, they're just trying to improve you, and they don't do that to give you just a hard time. They're trying to improve you.
Maybe some of them they do it on purpose though.
Yeah, probably.
All right. So our next question is a little bit personal, and if you have a chance to go back to college graduation, like what would you do differently?
Oh, all right. So when you say graduation, like, are we talking about the last year?
After graduation, actually, I think could be better. Like not about how you can spend your time in a better way in the college, but like the experience you get on the journey, and like if we apply that feedback to the younger version of Gokhan right now, how things would have been different.
Sure. So after I graduated, I moved to I was living in Istanbul and I moved to Palo Alto right away. And I think I have a unique case because I moved there after selling my Turkish startup, and I try to meet as many people as possible. So and then I decided to start a company. I think what I would do differently is I would try to join a company rather than trying to start my own, because I didn't know the fact that, let's say, Silicon Valley works a little bit differently as opposed to Istanbul. And then I tried to solve things from how I would do it back in Istanbul. I feel like if I joined a company in Silicon Valley, I would learn way more on how Silicon Valley works as opposed to, let's say, starting my own company. And then I'd like to like give you guys a little bit important detail here as well. So right now, the Silicon Valley companies, they are one of the and maybe most valuable companies in the world when you look from a market cap, like the finance perspective. The reason is they figured out like how to be profitable on what they do. That like the power to be able to look at different things and invest in different things. So as opposed to when I graduated back in 2013, which is Facebook was just a social network and Google was just a search engine. I think that differentiation is really important. So if I graduated today, I would try to join a large company. And I learned this when I was like going to course at Stanford. Somebody told me this. I think this can be some sort of a guiding principle for everyone as well. This applies to Stanford students, but you can think about it from your own perspective as well. And then the suggestion there was if you are like in the debt for college payments, go join a big company where you're gonna get salary for sure. And then if you are not in a debt and you're just like around zero, go join a smaller company because you're gonna get a salary plus equity, where that equity has very high chance of becoming valuable in the future. And then if and only if have savings, then start a company, because starting a company is actually a little bit expensive, more expensive than how it looks from the outside, because of the fact that, let's say, at the early times, you have to do the expense, but you're not able to like get like you have life expenses, but you're not able to get a good enough salary from your own company to be able to like pay for those expenses. So I think that guiding principle might be helpful. Luckily, like I sold my Turkish startup when I like graduated from college, so that's how I like started the company. So if you are in college right now, build a startup that might be profitable or you can sell before you graduate from college might be my, I don't know, just example.
All
And I
right.
know it doesn't apply to everyone. It's just like how it happened for me.
Yeah, thanks for sharing this personal opinions with us. We really appreciate it.
Sure.
And our last pre-requested question is: so far we talked about the sunny days, the good days, hot days, warm days, but not all the days are like that. So,
Sure.
what are the hardest, most challenging moments in your career so far, and like how did you overcome those tough times?
So I'll tell you a few of those. So there were the times where, let's say, we were supposed to get funding, and then something about regulations changed. So all of the investors said, "Hey, if the regulations are like that, we're not going to be able to fund you." But they gave me that answer in 6 months. So like I had to wait for them to say no in 6 months, but that regulation change happened like before the 6 months. So waiting, trying to figure out if I would be able to get the funding or not was one of the hardest moments in my career. And then eventually not getting the funding while like 6 months before preparing everything that I will get the funding was one of the hardest moments, like hardest periods of my life. Um, And then the second thing is, I believe it is dependent on, so when you're doing influencer marketing, you are very dependent on external processes. So, for example, when Instagram changes their API, you're not able to get the data you're used to get like previously. And then let's say one of those dates where Facebook was under like fire for accidentally sharing user data. So they normally have like an API change process where they announce that they're going to do a change, then they change it so you prepare yourself. But because they were under like heavy fire, they closed the API right away to get their data, which we were using for influencer marketing. So those platform risks were really like challenging to have in my career as well. And one of the other things I think from a technical perspective, we were building the photo app, the VSnap photo app, and then like it's not working. Like we're working hard, like it's Objective C, we're doing our best, and then it's not working. Like the something is wrong in the app. I don't want to go into details, and it turns out it was a bug in iOS, like the operating system of iPhone. So it was the problem was not ours. It turns out everybody in the whole ecosystem was having the same problem, and then they fixed that problem in the next release. So I think having those external challenges were the number one challenges that I faced in my career.
And I guess like rather than reporting and waiting the third party to fix it, there is not much you can do about it.
Yeah, you just have to wait for it. That's really challenging.
So time is the cure for many things. Yeah.
Yeah, and then while that's happening, by the way, your app users are like giving you 1 stars, and you're like waking up and you see those like 1-star emails that you're like following the reviews, and then you're crying inside, but there's nothing you can do.
All right, so these are all the questions we have, and now let's turn to our audience and see if there are any questions for you. Could you please raise your hand if you have any questions?
I have a question.
Perfect.
All right, so my question is, how is the audience so far? Like, I'm not able to see them. I'm curious how is the audience happy so far? Are they liking the call so far?
So, let's do this.
Oh, by the way, that question helped me. Shirt.
What happened? It's back now? Okay.
I think we got disconnected, by the way.
Is it back now? Can you see us?
That's back.
Okay.
Right. That was a good trick, Emre. Not sharing the audience. It was a good trick to not share the audience. All right. To see you.
Okay, I can actually place it like this for the rest, and actually that's a very good idea. It shouldn't be one way, right? So if you have any questions for our students, then they are welcome to answer. Yes.
Sure. So raise your hand if you are bored. All right, raise your hand if you had a little bit of fun so far. Perfect. I'm happy to hear that. All right, so do you guys have any questions? Like, I tried to. All right, there's a question over there.
No, I'm just.
By the way, Emre, can you please move the screen a little bit down if it's possible?
Oh yes. How about now?
Better, way better. Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. So, no questions? Do you have any more questions for us, Gokhan?
Yeah. So, how is let's say, who is the scapegoat of the group? Like, whenever somebody needs to ask a question, like you push, hey, can you ask that question for me? Do you guys have that person in the group?
Like, I think we should pick one, because since there is no question coming right now, looks like that's our next task. We should decide who is going to be that person.
All right. I picked the person on the back with the square T-shirt on this side because I can see him clearly under the light. No, you wait. Emre, can you see from the screen like over here?
Who? Like this guy? Let's do this.
Yeah, him. Yes.
Okay.
All right. Hello. What's your name?
What's your name?
I couldn't hear it. But let's say I'd like to learn more. What's your passion? Like, what brings you to here, for example?
I think you should compose.
Yeah.
So my name is Sani.
And Sani,
Sani.
by the way, now when I said it, history came.
I think.
All right. So, yeah.
I'm a fourth year software engineering student. So I think my passion is solving problems that exist in the community, especially in our several of them. So I think that's it.
All right. So, let me ask this question: what would you do differently if you were just graduating right now?
What?
No, I'm just kidding because you're already
That's the only question that's probably not applicable.
yeah.
Good choice.
All right, so I'm curious. Let's see. While you guys are thinking, thank you by the way, thank you, sir. So while you guys are thinking about any questions, maybe I can ask Emre a question to break the ice. Emre, what would you do different if you're graduating now?
I knew that moment was gonna come, but I was so lazy not to get prepared to answer. So, one thing I would do differently when I was graduating right now is definitely think more about what kind of problems I want to work on while I was choosing a company to work for. Because when I was a fresh grad, when it comes to choosing a company, I was looking for how much money I'm gonna make, how difficult the interviews were, how did I feel with the people that I had interviewed with, rather than thinking about what customers are working with this company, like what problem is this company trying to solve, what is their mission, to whom they are helping, do I really feel passionate about being part of solution for these problems, do I really feel passionate about helping those customers. So I think the questions that I mentioned later are more important than the ones that are before. So I would definitely change the precedence for the questions and then make my choice when it comes to picking a company to work for based on the questions, like leather questions. Because it matters more and it gives you more satisfaction, and also the problems that you are working on, you are going to get better on those. So I spent my last 3 years in mobile advertising, and right now I have very good insights about mobile advertising. But I don't feel passionate about mobile advertising. Like moving forward, it's not likely that I'm going to start a mobile advertising company. So if I had spent that time on a company which is working on problems that I feel passionate about, I think it would have been a better use of my time. So that's what I would do differently.
I agree with you. And then I'd like to add something to that one as well. So the problem is really important, like the mission and why you're working at the company is really important. Another thing that is important, I think it is really important as well, who you're working with is really important. So you touched this a little bit, like who your clients will be. I think who your teammate, who your managers will be, and who your reports will be is really important as well. So I think the what people say is they don't quit jobs because of the company; they quit jobs because of their managers. So I think if you are like trying to make a decision like between two companies, like which one should I join, I think if let's say you like both missions and you like everything, I think the choice you should make is less on, let's say, the people usually choose the whichever company is paying the most, but let's say if the change, like if the difference is not that huge, I would recommend you to choose the company which you will be enjoying working with the people more, because you're spending, let's say, at least 8 days with the company every day. You sometimes see them more than your family, like more sometimes even more than your friends, because you see them every day. They're gonna be your friends. They're gonna be the like people you spend your time with. So I think choosing based on like how you're feeling in the interviews socially is important as well. That's what I keep hearing from friends, and that's what, let's say, people. That's why people quit usually as well,
Thank you very much for your
or
insights.
keep working. Yeah.
So, do we have any questions? And if not, then like any conclusive remarks, Gökhan?
Any closing remarks? So I'm super happy to like connect with you guys. If there is anything I can be helpful at, like please feel free to reach out to me. I think Emre will share my details. Like please feel free to like I don't know, add me on LinkedIn or follow me on GitHub or Twitter, or and then reach out to me. I have my I don't know, direct messages open on Twitter. You can ask me any questions if you want to say that, and if you just like mention that like we mutually met at the session, I'll be happy to like prioritize those questions.
Thank you very much, Gökhan.
And then for sure, and then like keep doing what you do best, and like I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in I don't know, a month, a year, maybe like after years, and then maybe like somehow bumping into each other and like hearing from you guys. Hey, like we spoke with each other, and now I'm in the Silicon Valley, or now I'm doing amazing in Ethiopia, and then I'd love to see how you guys progress in the future, and I'm pretty sure you will do your best as well.
Thank you very much, Gökhan, for your valuable
you.
time and your amazing insights. I think they are gonna help us becoming better version of ourselves. And one thing you mentioned at the beginning, like when your peers were partying in the college, like you were working on projects, like doing startups, and here the time is 7:49 right now, and it's Friday night, and like all these people are in this class. So when their peers are doing some other stuff, they are showing this dedication, and I would like to take this as an opportunity to thank to our students as well. I mean, this is huge.
Yeah.
Like what you guys are doing is huge, and hopefully we are gonna get great results at the end of this program. Thank you very much.
By the way, I want to mention that I sometimes partied at the college as well. So, so I think after this dedication, you can celebrate as well.
That's what we are gonna do right after the session. All right, Gökhan. Thank you very much,
All right,
and hope to
thank
see you soon.
Very good one.
You too. Bye.